welcome to my channel. My name is Misty. Today's video is going to be about the benefits of homeschool. Now keep in mind, I did do a video that was more about why we started homeschool. Of course, there are similar themes in this video, but this video adds on to the actual benefits, not just the things that I chose to start homeschooling for. And those things that I kind of talk about in here that were on that video, we go more in depth on this one. So let's go ahead and get into that. Before we do, make sure that you hit the subscribe button for more content just like this, everything homeschool on this channel. And the like button lets me know that this is a type of video you enjoy so that I know what to make for you in the future for more videos. All right, let's go ahead and get into these reasons of why homeschooling is beneficial. So even though there are tons of reasons to homeschool and there are many benefits that come with it, these are pertaining more specifically to what we've personally noticed on our level. So before we get started, I would like for you guys to tell me down in the comments some of the benefits you notice about homeschooling for your own household. And in this video, I'm just going to hit 4 of those reasons or those things that we find to be benefits of homeschooling. And of course, it's like a broad topic, and then we're going to go more in depth. So let's go ahead and do that. So the very first and I think obvious reason is ratio, one-on-one teaching versus a large teacher-student ratio where there's one teacher and 25 to 30 kids. Let's talk about that. So we know, even in a class setting, that when there are less students in that ratio, the teacher to student ratio, we know that there's more efficient learning being done with those smaller class settings. And so obviously that holds truth for homeschooling too. And yes, you might have more than one kid, obviously you're teaching at a time, but still, even with it being a small group with you and your kids, it still allows a more efficient learning experience. And when you're in this more one-on-one setting, you obviously are also removing a lot of need for standardization. So obviously in a classroom setting, yes, there is standardization for most schools because there needs to be some sort of a measure of learning, a measure of comprehension, a measure of understanding how well teachers are doing what they're doing, though there are arguments to make about that for a whole nother video. Standardized testing, which we know works best for people who are critical analytical thinkers. Not everybody else necessarily fits into the mold of how standardized testing works, to be honest. And so if you have a child who just doesn't learn in those analytical critical ways, then they can fall behind or have trouble testing. It's not that they're not an intelligent child or that they're not comprehending, but maybe just they're not being addressed in the way their brain learns and develops best. So standardizing can really mess with a kid's confidence, and it can push them behind on the learning curve from where they should be. And so that kind of goes into the next part of the same thing. When you're doing homeschooling, you have a more comprehensive understanding of where a child is in their learning ability. You're able to learn a pace that works specifically best for your kids, not a middle road. So if you have a kid who would be technically falling at one end of the bell curve, right? We have the kids who are doing really well and they're considered advanced, and then you have the other kids who are, by school standards, falling behind, not able to comprehend. And so there is a problem with that in schools. So yes, like in a classroom setting with 25, 30 kids, the teacher is probably going to try to stick to a middle road to keep as many kids on track as possible, and can't necessarily address the needs of those falling behind or those who are technically being held back from excelling the way that they could. So when you homeschool, you don't have the same worry as you would in a school, where if your child is falling behind because there's a lack of comprehension, you're able to address that one-on-one instead of trying your best to get tutors and get them caught up when maybe they're just not being addressed in the way that they learn. Or say that your child, you notice, is advanced and you don't want them held back because they have to follow that middle of the road learning when their brain is already ready to go on and comprehend more and delve deeper into an education. So those gifted kids obviously aren't getting what they need as well. Yes, they're comprehending everything, they have straight A's or however you want to see it, but even with that, they still aren't getting an education that is helping them to thrive. It's kind of sad, but like then they're just getting by because their brain is ready to do so much more, but they're only getting by because they're only able to absorb what they're given. So I think that that is a huge benefit, as well as when you're doing those one-on-one classroom settings or one-on-two, whatever it is the kids you have. We're going to call it one-on-one for the sake of this video. With doing these smaller settings, as homeschoolers do, you're going to have shorter learning time frames. They don't need an 8-hour day. Okay, when you're doing one-on-one, you get through that subject, you guys are on the same page and the comprehension is happening, and they are left with more time throughout the day to just be a kid. That's their number one job, right? We don't want them to grow up too quick. So with doing homeschool, they are allowed to have more of that time to just be a kid. So I don't know how to really wrap that up other than what I just said. So we're going to move to another reason why I love homeschooling and I see the benefits of it. Now let's talk about homeschool learning styles. So as I mentioned before, you're able to remove standardized education. This leaves you a lot of room and opportunity to figure out your homeschooling methods that work, as well as how your child learns. What's their learning style? In a traditional school setting, a lot of those learning styles are going to be overlooked. This leaves you this time to really think about it. Am I more of a Montessori type school? Am I Charlotte Mason based? Am I more eclectic and doing my own thing? Are we unschooling? How's the structure looking? Is my child hands-on or is she audible? Are we going to do a lot of art? Are we going to do a lot of books? Are we going to do a lot of engineering? Like, what does that look like for you? You have the freedom to explore all these options that they normally would not get necessarily in a class setting. So I keep hitting on testing, guys, but I have strong feelings. I was a great tester. I was very good in a standardized education setting. I was bored, so I just didn't do a lot, but I totally comprehended everything I was being taught. I was also the only kid who passed all 5 parts of the 5th grade, or what was it at the time? I don't know if it was the OGT or proficiency test, whatever it was. I was the only kid. We had an award ceremony, and there were people who passed, you know, this part, that part, this part, that part. I was the only kid who passed all 5 in my entire grade. That speaks volumes for how much I dislike standardized testing and how it doesn't measure much of anything, to be honest. It may measure a school's competency in a sense, I guess, but it won't measure a child's ability to comprehend and learn. Public schools are not addressing all the ways kids need to learn. And so here are all these kids in my 5th grade class who are intelligent. Like, I remember thinking this. They're intelligent kids. Why am I the only one that passed all 5 parts? And as I got older, obviously I gained more perspective. So with homeschooling, most states allow you to remove testing. Here in our state, we do have the option to do an assessment of some sort, as well as a portfolio that has to be approved. There's a third option, which isn't even worth getting into, but we have the option to remove standardization and testing. There are nervous testers that are very intelligent people, but just for the reason of it being a test, they just cannot pass it because it just gets their anxiety going. They're not able to concentrate and think. So I'm very much not into testing, to be honest. And if I am going to do a test, it's not going to look like what you would expect from your regular public school. So when you're no longer measuring learning by a test, this leaves a lot more room for meaningful education, intentional education. It takes a lot of pressure off. You're able to cater to your child's interests this way. It allows room for them to concentrate more on subjects and things that they love without a need to pace forward and move fast because you have to get through the whole day's worth necessarily like of work. Does that make sense? I don't know. Let me try to reword that. You have no need to speed up and make them hurry up and finish the things that they love, that they really could be like delved in, hands-on doing for hours, honestly, because you don't have a need to meet the needs of 30 kids in one day. It's child-led learning. You can ask your kid what they want to learn. You can pay attention and see what draws them in. What are they interested in? With doing this, you're fostering the love for an education and you're giving them the freedom to navigate subjects that they truly, genuinely love. This allows them to excel in subjects that they love. It helps them gain a confidence, and it also gives them passion at a young age. In a traditional school setting with way too many kids, to be honest, a teacher has the stress of being responsible for having all of those children's needs met. So they can't give the same type of thriving environment as a homeschool setting can. Granted, there are a few teachers out there, yes, that have figured out how to make that work and meet everybody's needs, and I mean, they are actual heroes. They're awesome people. I have a lot of respect for teachers. I was going to be one. But at home, we don't have that same added pressure as a teacher does with 30 kids. This also lends a hand to unique learning opportunities that you wouldn't get in a class, or at least not as much as you could at home. I always have trouble saying this word, but I'm going to try. But entrepreneurial learning is something that I believe in strongly. What you guys don't know is behind the scenes, I do things. I hustle. I make money, okay? Entrepreneurial spirit. Entrepreneur's spirit is what we'll call it. Entrepreneur's spirit. And I noticed my daughter Viviana picking up on that. She goes, I want to make money. I know mom can make money. Can I do the same thing? You know, so those gears are already going on in her head, and she hustles me, you guys. She will get up without being asked and do different house tasks that she sees that need to be met. And then she'll come to me and say, pay me. You know, like, is it the best approach? No, it's not. But I can't deny her entrepreneur's heart. So I pay her. She also helps me with my business. She'll say, hey, I'll help you. Can you pay me? You know, like she wants to be an employee of mine. So she helps me and I pay her a little bit of money. It's not a lot, you know, she's 5. Quarters are amazing to 5-year-olds. That's not something you're going to get in a class setting, right? Unless they're going to a special school where somebody specializes in teaching those things. Some things just cannot be taught in a classroom, and one of them is how to be an entrepreneur. If you have a child that shows interest in that, it's really hard for a teacher to set aside time, show them how to find ways to make money, show them how to get merchandise, how to price it, how to find buyers, right? How to build clientele, how to offer a service or a skill. Those aren't things they have room for in a classroom unless it's a special class. But here at home, I can make that part of our everyday learning. Another thing, personal finance. You guys, school taught me nothing about personal finance. I know a lot about geometry. I know a lot about algebra. Does that attain to my everyday life though? No, it doesn't. I think we all know the flaw in that, right? We're like, I can do square roots and I can do Pythagorean theorem, but I can't figure out a credit card, you know? So I have the opportunity to explain to her at home our financial values and how money should be managed and how it should be dispersed. So that's another really cool thing about homeschool. I'm not going to delve too much into all these specific topics because obviously I could talk forever, but you know, religious learning, a lot of schools have separated from religion, which, you know, whatever, I'm neutral on that. A lot of schools aren't offering cooking classes, anything like that, but there are a lot of benefits in that way. So before I talk too long, because if you watch my videos, you know I can ramble on. To move to the next subject, the third one is homeschooling can be very accommodating. You can learn when you want, how you want, where you want. That is very enticing to me. The obvious one, I mean, all of it's kind of obvious, but I have the ability to change our schedule. I can change it if we have a super busy day, right? I can make the workload a little lighter on that day, or I could choose to really kind of jam pack everything more into one day so we can have a whole free day to go do another thing. I can move around things for field trips, for housework, right? Things that need upkeep in the house. I can move things around for errands. Like, there's just so many ways that it appeals to you in that way because I can fit it wherever I need to in the day. Another very nice point to this is you can vacation when you want. Trying to pull your kids out of a school setting for vacation is not something that is highly looked at, right? Like, schools don't enjoy you taking students out for vacation, right? They just gave them a few months off. They're thinking you should have done it at that time, and a lot of schools will give you truancy issues if you try to do it. And also a lot of schools need you to prove that this can be an educational trip for the child in order to do it. I don't have to worry about that. If we want to go to Disney in October, we go to Disney in October. If I want to take the girls out of the United States for 2 weeks during, I don't know, like a big testing time in school where, you know, when kids would be testing, I can do that. We don't have the same we don't have the weight of having to meet these schools' standards for truancy or attendance. As long as I'm meeting my state regulated laws, I'm able to take this schooling and go anywhere and do it anytime. Another really important thing about it being accommodating is that it makes room for mental health days. We as adults need mental health days. We know that we are running ourselves ragged often, and many times we overlook our own mental health days and we just continue to run ragged. Kids need the same thing. They are still humans with emotions, and in a sense they're having a harder time with emotions than we are because their brains aren't fully developed to comprehend emotion. So they need mental breaks too. Sometimes you just know that there's just too much going on, you know, in their mind, or just a lot is on their plate, whatever that looks like at their size. It may not look as grand on an adult scale, but in a kid's eyes, it's a lot to handle. So you have the ability to kind of pull back, take a second and breathe, and let your kid have mental health days. And I find that to be very important. So kind of leading into that goes into the fourth and final reason for this, although this video is probably super long. Yeah, it's super long, 26 minutes in. Ooh, this can be fun to edit. But it allows the ability to foster emotional health and also healthy relationships. It allows one-on-one growth and development time for understanding emotions. So if you don't know, if you're not aware, a child's brain is not fully developed to comprehend and be able to manage all emotions and feelings, especially heavy feelings such as grief or loss or other things like that, anxiety. Their brains aren't fully equipped for that and they don't know how to handle it. And so this one-on-one time allows you to be able to be on their level and see when they need you to intercept and help usher them through that feeling, help guide them through it to get to the other side and understand what's going on. A teacher is going to have a lot more difficulty doing that. I'm sure that they want to, you would want to make sure your children in your classroom are happy and healthy and thriving, but when you have 30 kids to address, it's really hard for you to step aside and notice every single kid's emotional needs. So I'm able to recognize and intercept those feelings and help walk them through it so that I'm able to help them develop a healthier emotional life. Also, more time with my kids. Hello guys, I'm selfish. I want them with me all the time. A lot of us feel like that, even though sometimes they're annoying and you want to give them back. But regardless of even when they're a bit annoying and over the top, I understand that I only have them here with me for so long and I want to make the best of it. And a traditional classroom setting would mean I wouldn't get as much time with them as I do at home. So I'm able to continue to foster our relationship and grow our relationship and build more trust and more memories with being home and homeschooling them. With homeschooling, I have more ability to control. I don't like using the word control because, you can only technically control so much in life. And also my children are not my property, they are human beings. But for the sake of this conversation, I'm just going to probably use the word control. I'm able to choose their friends more and to kind of, in a sense, control their interactions with people and their influences. When your kid's in a school setting, you hope that you raised them right. I'm speaking even from my own self thinking about this, not like in a judgment way at all. I'm not judging anyone, but like you send them to school. You hope that you've raised a good human, but you can't control or even always be in the loop with what's going on in the school. You don't know if they're hanging out with the bullies. You don't know if they're hanging out with the bad influences. You don't know if they are being a bad influence. Those things are hard to see when they're away for 8 hours and a teacher's not reporting every little thing back to you, right? They have too much going on, honestly, and they're probably only going to report the worst of the worst. So I'm able to control that aspect to an extent. Also, another great point about this is I'm able to foster some of the really strong personality traits of my kids that would otherwise be muted or quieted by a school setting. We know in a school setting, a lot of it is sit down, stay quiet, listen to the teacher, make sure you're not over talking, don't do this, don't do that, right? There's a lot of that going on. A teacher has to maintain chaos, okay? So it's just not easy for them to just run and be crazy and just let their personality out if they're really strong personalities. My youngest is an extremely strong personality. She is a wildfire on the run. She is driven, she is determined, she is stubborn and hard-headed, she is wild and adventurous, she has pretty much no fear. Those are things that often would probably irk a teacher, right? They're the kid that goes to the principal. So I know that my poor little Savannah would be the kid that would go to the principal often, or I would get phone calls because she just runs wild, guys. It's in her nature. It is her personality. It is her being her happiest and thriving. Yes, it's very hard to parent a child like that. Like, you know, if you have a kid like that, it is hard. But at the same time, you don't want to shove those parts of their being down and stiffen them up. And in a school, it's really hard for a teacher to allow those things to reign freely compared to at home, where I kind of rein in maybe where it's not appropriate in a sense. Like if she's using it in a negative way, we can address that. But I allow her to be her wild, crazy, just wildfire self. We leave room for that here, and we have the intention to foster it and to help that part of her thrive and to grow and to benefit the world. A lot of these children that don't behave, however, I hate that word, but they don't behave, are children who can be world changers, right? They encompass these personality traits that make great leadership and make huge changes in the world. And so we, as parents, don't want to stuff that part of them down so quiet that it's no longer there. And I'm gonna stop there just because I'll talk for 20 years on that subject alone, but I think you get the point about that part. And the very last point I will touch on involved in this like healthy setting is safety and stability. In a home setting, and I would hope this is true. Granted, I know there are homes that this is not the case, but I'm going to believe in the best of you that if you are watching this video, especially all the way to this point, you have a home where you have a lot of love to give and are doing your best to be a great parent. So before I touch on those, that's what I would hope is going on, though I know in reality that these things I'm touching on may not be true. If you find any of what I'm about to say as part of your home, please reach out to someone for help. Figure out how you can get out of these very unhealthy situations. So the first one is my children in a homeschool setting are less likely to see violent acts. You know, in schools we're knowing that there are gun violence things happening and there are bullying situations going on. There are physical altercations, all of those kind of things. And here in my home, we do not allow those things. We do not stand for those things. You will not be a bully in my house, nor will someone bully you. We will not let violent people come into our home. Now, granted, there are things I can't control. Like obviously school doesn't necessarily, oh, this is all very hot-headed subjects, but a school doesn't necessarily control a gunman coming into their classroom. I can't control it necessarily either, though the chances of seeing that are less likely in our home. Our own peers and mentors and influences are all people who build up. They don't do anything to tear down. So the likeliness of seeing those things here are way slimmer than in a school setting. Another thing is pedophilia. I hate that I even have to bring that up, but here's the truth at the end of the day. Pedophiles will look for opportunities to reach their victims. That includes, and I stand by this, going to the point of getting a degree to be able to teach your children and to not have, you know, the parents around. They will become involved with companies that are very children based. That way they can be around kids on a regular basis. Pedophiles will find a way to get to your children. I do not trust educators. I have removed personal relationships of my own where something was alarming. I said, you got to go, because that stuff will not be around my children. And I hate that this video is ending so heavy, but it's so true, right? So in my home, I'm able to control and see those relationships that otherwise could groom children into being their victim. So I think I'll just stop there. I don't want to go too negative and deep into the dark world of all of that, but obviously that does have its benefits here in a homeschool setting. All right, so I'm going to end it there. Like I said, I don't want to go too dark and too deep into that whole rabbit trail, but yes, those are all benefits to homeschooling. And this is a long video, I'm sorry guys. But yes, if there are other benefits that you're thinking of, leave them in the comments down below for us to hear about. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more content just like this, and the like button lets me know that this is the type of content you enjoy. I'll see you guys in the next video. Have fun homeschooling. Bye.